but I am not your therapist. Welcome to the second episode of the podcast. I'm so glad you're here. This is a podcast about me, an Afro-LatinX artist, exploring my self-awareness with relationships, boundaries, and cultural identity. I will share my life, my truth, and my purpose. This episode is titled The Breakup. Today, I will discuss how in order to grow and level up in life, you have to break up with parts of yourself that trap and sabotage you into toxic behaviors. So get ready for a raw and uncut episode that will be relentlessly authentic. An important note before we begin, I want to clarify that the aspects of my opinions and story that I will be talking about on this podcast are my own and are not affiliated in any way to Fontenelle art. Any other partnerships or present collaborations, I will also honor, of course, the confidentiality and not reveal any true identities of any person or place that I share about without permission. And lastly, a quick disclaimer before the topic. Please take care of your ears. I am hard of hearing and I tend to have a burst of energy randomly. And so sometimes I'm too loud. Not for myself, but for those listening. Adjust your volume accordingly. Let's begin. Whew. Here we are, episode 2, the breakup. My. It has been such an interesting journey since the last time I recorded an episode. And it's been just so freeing, like really being able to acknowledge just how my mental space has cleared up since the last episode of coming out publicly. And I've just been able to just sit with myself in a different way and go deeper in my place of worship and go deeper in my thoughts and my reflection. It's kind of like that glass ceiling I didn't even know was there had just like bursted. And, as I'm going through the season of being raw, authentic, showing up for myself, I'm noticing that I have some toxic behaviors. And yes, I'm a therapist. So please know that all therapists need therapists and we are not perfect. We just have a heart and we want to lead others into an experience of self-love and self-reflection, which is probably why we do it, because we need it ourselves. Makes sense. I believe growing up as a Latina, there are some things, from my childhood, from my parents, from family, from going to Colombia, just some things that were normalized that aren't the best. So here's like a very, very small example. I was dating someone in college and I guess I didn't realize I was doing this, but in my family, and let me know if other Latinos do this, but like if our hands are occupied, we use our lips to point to whatever we're referring to. So if I'm washing dishes and you ask me, hey, where is the cup? I'm going to be like, oh, the cup is over there. Insert point with lips. And it's like, oh, okay, that's just what I do. And so growing up, and dating him, he was like, why do you always point with your lips? And I was like, what? What do you mean? You asked me for something and I told you where it was. And that's on a small scale. Now, I believe that there are a lot of things that I have that are, like they're defense mechanisms. So they have a reasoning, they have a purpose. Is it the best? Probably not. As most of us have, we probably don't have the best defense mechanisms. But are they purposeful? Absolutely. Because the purpose is to protect you. And it protects you at whatever cost, at the stake of another person. And so, going on this journey of just like, how am I as a person in relationships? How am I, and relationships being like friendships, as a daughter, as a sister, as an employee, like what type of things do I communicate? non-verbally, intentionally, subconsciously. And it's tough. I don't like doing the work. I don't. There's a lot of things that I've been, that I know that I need to work on, and COVID kind of like brought it to this forefront right here. Like not 5 years, but like right here in front of me. And I'm like kicking and screaming. I don't want to let go of it. I don't want to change. I don't want to grow because it's comfortable. I'm very comfortable in who I am. I am a grown woman and I am 30 years old. That's a lot of habits and a lot of behaviors and a lot of lifestyles and a lot of things about me that I'm just comfortable with. But I also want to be better. And I also want to be healthy. And I want to be able to take other people further than what I know. And that requires me sitting down and looking in the mirror. Like looking straight at myself and saying, all right, what's inside of you? That is terrible. And don't get me wrong, I am a super positive person. Like I am quick to affirm you. I am quick to redirect anyone around me who says anything negative about themselves. But when you're breaking up with someone, you kind of just got to call it as it is. Like the more you dance around it, the worse it is and the more challenging it is. And the other person doesn't really get what they need out of it. Sometimes you get closure, sometimes you don't. And so I'm trying to go into this space where I'm sitting down and I'm looking in the mirror and I'm like, I see this, I see this, I see that, you do that, you always do that, you always retaliate to doing this. I've heard you say that before. And just being like kind of hard on myself. I'm probably going a little bit too extreme in how I'm doing this. So I got to ask God to help me have more self-compassion, which is what my therapist is really, really helping me with, which is really interesting how I can be so self-compassionate towards others. But when it comes to little Christina, I am just like, what are you doing? What is this? What's going on? Why is this happening? You got to get rid of that. You got to change that. But the problem with that is I expect a lot of myself because of what I do, because of my profession. And I don't allow myself to mess up. I don't allow myself to be human. I don't allow myself to make mistakes. And I think that a piece of that comes back from my father. I'm pretty sure that that's where a lot of it stems from. Being able to recognize that my father has had a level of expectation of me. Well, also, being, a daughter of immigrant parents. So they came to America, the American dream. They wanted me to become a doctor or a lawyer. That is not who I am. I am a full-blown artist, which is like the opposite of what they wanted. But something my father taught me was just like, you don't cry. You don't express your emotions. If you don't know something, you figure it out. You don't ask for help. How the heck am I supposed to get through life if there's something that I don't know and I'm not supposed to ask anyone? So it goes into like fake it till you make it. But that can only get you so far until you start to like literally crumble apart. And so I started creating these toxic behaviors that were kind of from my father's masculinity passed down into me. But the weirdest thing is that this isn't like from me to another person, family member or coworker or, in a relationship, but it's my internal dialogue. If you knew how hard I was on myself, you'd be so surprised that I can have that dual like relationship where I can like turn it on and turn it off. I can turn it on outside, but I really struggle with turning it on internally. And that's something that my therapist is helping me with, but also naming, like helping me name stuff. And for those of you who don't know, that's kind of like a therapeutic term, like name it so that you can move past it. It's kind of like the first step is admitting, if you were doing 12 step or something like that. Just being able to call it as it is. Like, I struggle with this. I'm not capable of that. Or, I'm not happy with this part of myself or my life. And it's tough because in order to name it, you have to acknowledge that you are incapable or you are lacking or there is something that is not complete and there's a void. And I really struggle with that, to the point where I even struggle with feeling my feelings. I do. I really do. I struggle with feeling my feelings. Not that I think feelings are weak, because obviously I'm an expressive therapist and I believe that everyone should have the right to express what they feel. But I tend to, because I am so like psychological, and I live at the bottom of the ocean. Like, I literally do. I come up to the surface just to have basic conversations with people. And when it's like stupid conversations of like, oh my gosh, gossip and stuff, I'm literally like dying on the inside. But because I live in that I am always trying to reflect and go inward. And I'm trying to go deep and deep and deep. And I go so deep that I try to find patterns and like connections. Like, am I like this because of my mom? Am I like this because of my brother? Am I like this because of this experience? Or, growing up in the church? Or because, in Colombia, they said that one thing and I was never able to let it go. I'm constantly trying to find the spider web. Like, how does all of my life experiences thus far create the me today? And it's impossible. I'm not going to remember every single incident, every single conversation, every single word. And so I find myself lost in my mind and my thoughts and trying to figure myself out. And my therapist is like, she'll listen to me and I'll share all this stuff. And she'll be like, Christina, she's Puerto Rican, by the way. Real quick, my therapist is unreal. She's Puerto Rican, Christian, and a dance movement therapist. She's like me, but Puerto Rican. And it's beautiful. But she was like, okay, yeah, so that's what happened. How do you feel? And I'm like, I literally pause, like, how do I feel? How do I feel? Think. I think of like Pooh Bear. Think. You can't think what emotions you're feeling, because then you're going to process it and dissect it. That's not authentic. I literally have to pause, take a couple breaths and be like, what am I feeling? And so that's one of the toxic things that I do. I don't allow myself to feel certain things because I feel like it's inappropriate, or I feel like it's not the right time, or I just feel like I don't want to dive deep into this part of me right now. Like, we're still in 2020, and I'm probably going to say that in every episode. We're still in 2020. This year has been insane. Chicago is going reverse in the shutdown. It's just weird. We're in a weird space. And so I kind of don't want to dive deep into myself, but I have no other choice to, because this is the opportune time. And there are things that are just surfacing up that I'm like playing whack-a-mole. I'm like, no, no, I don't want to feel that. I don't want to process that. I don't want to think about that. I don't want to feel that. I don't want to think about that. And just over and over and over. And so I believe I can name one of my unhealthy coping mechanisms is that I work a lot. In the beginning of the pandemic, I was working till like 6 in the morning. Because I'm like, I'm going to sleep all day and work all night and change my schedule and everything will be reversed and I won't be bothered. And that worked. And then I got into a crazy relationship and then here I am. So overworking not giving myself the time and space to be able to breathe, to exhale. Shout out to my friend Wanaki. Last week, we were talking about some guilt and shame that came up for me. And I was telling her, like, I'm going to set time to read every day. I'm going to, pour into myself and understand psychologically what's happening, where these behaviors are being rooted from, why I'm making these decisions. And she was like, girl, breathe. Like, chill. You don't have to take in all the time. And I'm like, but this is how you maximize productivity. I would literally be working like on my computer, and I would be listening to either a podcast or, learning how to do something or just some type of intake. And so I'm doing like dual processing of work / learning / digesting / reflecting. Of course, things are going to come up emotionally. And instead of just like, oh, I don't feel it, I don't see it, I'm just going to keep going like la la la. No, it's coming up for a reason. And so something that I do is that I have this day journal that sits right next to my computer, in my office, in my desk. And whatever emotion or thought comes up, I just write it down. There's so much power in just allowing an emotion to breathe. You don't have to process it right then and there. You don't have to dive deep. What if you just wrote it down? And that's what I do. If I come back to it, great. If I don't, that's okay too. Working on that self-compassion. With self-compassion, I struggle with it because I don't think I got a lot of it in my childhood. And that's being like 100% authentic. I love my mom. I do. She's an amazing and strong, resilient woman. And I'm grateful for her. But growing up, there were some things, and I think it's cultural, where it was just really harsh, really direct, really like, Christina, you're fat. Or, Christina, how come you look like that? Or, look at your hair. And so some of this toxicness, these conversations that I'm having with myself aren't even my voice. Digest that for a second. Like, a beautiful analogy is that you're watching a play. You're the star of the play. It's your life. You see a clone of you in the audience. And that clone is saying, boo, you suck. Boo, you're not good. You're not good enough. You don't know what you're doing. There's someone out there who can do it better. And what you can't see from the stage and that dialogue that you're having with that negative self-talk is that behind that clone of you, someone said that to you first. A classmate, maybe a cousin, a family member, an uncle, in passing in the street. Like, that negative thought is not yours. That was someone else's thought. But because you've allowed it to manifest within your mind for so long that you've even forgotten the source. And then the source fades away. And then the voice becomes yours. And then the battle becomes daily. And that's tough. It's tough and it sucks. It sucks that we are that way. That quote, as I'm going to misquote it and I cannot remember it. It's not about what you do, but it's about all I know is that it's about how you make people feel. People remember that. People may not remember what you do, but they remember what you say. I don't know. Anyways, beginning to like go deeper into a relationship with myself has been very, very challenging, very uncomfortable. It's like I have to face myself more and more and acknowledge the parts of me that are toxic. But in my journey of that, knowing that I didn't bring this upon myself, I didn't ask for this. Am I responsible for perpetuating it? Absolutely. I am not a victim whatsoever. People who, well, first of all, I don't think that there is such a thing of toxic people. It's toxic behaviors. And I know that I have a lot of toxic behaviors because a lot of the people I've dated and been around have been able to name them. But I've always been like, no, it's you. It's not me. It's you. I'm successful. I'm this. I'm that. I'm educated. I've gone here. I've gone there. I'm independent. But that doesn't change the internal stuff. And I swear to you, anyone under 30 listening to my podcast, I turned 30 and I think of that Mr. Krabs like swirl meme where he was just like, I swear to you, I turned 30 and my life was just like, ready? Okay. Fire. And I'm like, what? Wait a minute. Like, what do you mean I've been like this my whole life? Or what do you mean that I'm struggling with this? And then like trying to accept it, but trying to be like, but why? Why? Like, first of all, why did anyone tell me like certain things? Second of all, why is it so strongly ingrained in me? Like, why? I'm doing it right now. I'm trying to find a pattern. I'm trying to figure myself out psychologically. So I'm going to practice what my therapist has taught me. I struggle with making certain people not who they are. I struggle with kind of like wanting them, like seeing the best in someone and seeing their potential and then trying to like force them into that. And that's kind of like me trying to play God's role of trying to like, well, if you just did this, you'd be able to do this and then you'd be happy and then you'd be great and then everything would be fine. But that's not my job. Because I am not anyone's therapist. Literally. Like I have no therapeutic clients. For a reason. And so, Lisaura would ask me, how do I feel in this moment? And I feel sad. She would ask me, you feel sad because? I feel sad because, I just got a download from God. I feel sad because there are certain, I'm not even gonna like try to, I'm not even gonna try to code it. Every man that I've dated or talked to or had some type of situationship, I've always tried to make them into something else other than what they were. Literally, every single one. Either faith-wise, job-wise, social status-wise. I've always made every man feel like they weren't good enough. Well, you don't have a degree. Next. Oh, you don't have your own house. You don't have your own car. Next. Oh, you're not capable of providing, X, Y, and Z for me. Next. Just dismissing them. Like, literally, like. I remember me and another friend, my friend Roxanne, growing up, it's embarrassing to say, but like growing up, I would always say backups for my backups. Like, I always had someone in line for the next, because I didn't want to deal with, like, you're not good enough. So I actually realized right now that I have been treating men the way my dad treated me. Oof. In a sense that I never felt good enough for him. I never felt smart enough, educated enough, accomplished enough, successful enough. And so for those of you who know me or will get to know me, you'll see that, like, I'm all about community. I'm all about bringing people together. I'm all about, like, people accepting themselves fully for who they are. And yet I struggle with this mindset that I'm not good enough for myself. But if you go a couple rows back of that voice, it's my dad. And so I am setting the intention of breaking up with that part of me, now that I know, and now that I even know even deeper after making this podcast. Like, I knew the behavior, but now I know the source. I feel like there's a level of responsibility. And of course, my initial insight is, okay, where's the problem? Here's the solution. How are we going to fix it? What's next? What do we have to cut out? What do we need to eliminate? What do we need to change? And it's like, actually, what if I just sat in that? Because that's heavy. And that's a lot. It literally is a lot to recognize that the reason why I don't feel good enough for myself is because I wasn't necessarily told that, but it was like hinted at growing up. Another strategy that I'm going to do for myself is, like, I'm going to start naming it. Like, trying to identify who is that person in the dark, that voice first said it to me. And start naming them. Like, if I say something that reminds me of my mom, but that really isn't a positive or something that she used to do, I'm going to be like, hey, Mom, how you doing? I see you still lingering. All right, let me put you in that journal, my day journal, sit you down there, and I'll come back to you later. Or, hey, second grade teacher. Hey, well, actually, I'll go with a better example. My high school teacher, I think I was like a sophomore or junior. She was my art teacher, and she said I was a terrible artist and that I drew like a kindergartner. Did I say that right? Kindergartner. That I drew like a kid, basically. And I just remember looking at her like, but how can you mess up art? Art is just whatever you want it to be. And subconsciously, and I'm recognizing that now, oh my gosh, maybe this podcast really is for me to deepen my self-awareness, because I don't really talk to anyone about anything. I'm gonna hold that thought. I have it here in my hand. I don't really talk about myself to people, even my friends. I'm real, like, you don't ask me, I don't say much unless I really trust you and I ask you for insight on something business related. But it's never like personal, mental, emotional advice. It's always like, hey, do you think this color scheme looks good? Or, do you think this art looks good with this? And so for me to be able to talk about it so freely outside of therapy, I'm making more connections that make me understand myself from a self-compassion way. Anyway, okay, so what I have in my hand is recognizing that my high school teacher told me that. And so I never identified as an artist until I got to college. I went to U of I Springfield. I was there for a year and a half, and then I transferred to Illinois State University, ISU, go Redbirds. And I I didn't feel like I was an artist until I had a degree. And so I took a 2D class. I took all these classes, like 3D, painting, all the basics. I was a studio arts major. And I would not call myself an artist because I didn't feel like I earned that title, or I didn't feel like I knew enough, or I was skilled enough. Graduated with my bachelor's, studio arts major, double minor in psychology and art history. Still did not call myself an artist. Went to the School of the Art Institute of Chicago, one of the top schools nationwide / internationally for art. Going into the program and going through the program, still did not identify as an artist. I wasn't worthy of it in my eyes. And I graduated. And then I said, okay, I'm okay with calling myself an artist now. But that completely invalidates all my years of painting and drawing and dancing and expressing. I mean, even in this very room, to be 100% transparent. Oh, this is beautiful. I am recording this podcast. Ooh. I am recording this podcast in my childhood room that I have converted into a studio and office space. The amount of tears, the amount of pain, like so many things has happened in this room. And for me to be able to get insight and self-reflection about myself in this very space, I think it's so symbolic. And I'm grateful for that opportunity to literally, I know parts of the floor in this room where I have sobbed. I mean, I lived here from when I was 7 years old up until I left for college. Came back, grad school, came back, Miami, came back, moved out independently, came back, moved out again, got a roommate, came back. I've moved a lot. And there's literally a magnetic pull for me and this house. And I think that there's a sense of healing, a sense of sitting with my inner child, sitting with my truth, and accepting the parts of me that I did not choose for me to be this way. It's tough, it's uncomfortable, it's annoying. I don't want to do the work. I think I have, and I'm curious if other therapists have felt this too, but I feel like I have this sense of responsibility to fix myself at a greater speed than others because I'm a therapist. I'm getting emotional. That's another thing I'm learning to do. Is to pause and let my emotions tell me what they need to communicate. I put this pressure on myself as a CEO and a founder and a full-time consultant and, as a healer, as a facilitator and yoga teacher, Zumba teacher, meditation, that if I don't do better than my toxic behaviors, that I'm losing, because I literally have no excuse. I know the tools, I have the tools, and I put this pressure on myself. What are you doing? You can literally get up and go do yoga and guide yourself through a healing process, yet you're choosing not to. So that's one side of me. And then the other side of me is saying, well, I just want to be. Like, can I just not feel this and be something else? Can I suppress this? It's a very, very, ugh, it's not a good thing. And I'm working on it. I can't expect myself to be perfect. And it's not fair for me to expect that of others. It's really not fair. And I think the more that I am expecting myself to do certain things, the more I pressure those around me. For those of you who don't know, I also, everyone struggles with mental health. That's my theory. Everyone has something that they're battling. One of the many things that I fight on a daily basis and I'm learning to live with is OCD. When it comes to like hygiene, when it comes to behavior, when it comes to schedules, I like things a particular way. Literally like color coded in a certain arrangement in a certain time frame, to the point where like I have to do it because I don't trust that anyone's gonna do it. And I'm learning and I'm really, really working on letting people have trust in the things that I give them. But that's not fair for other people because I'm trying to push them into a framework that's not what they asked for. And, the whole intention of this podcast is really for me to understand that I'm not anyone's therapist. But the scary thing is that when I have this symbolic therapy hat on, I don't even know that it's on. I have close friends in which I've told them, like, if you feel like I'm beginning to act like a therapist or I'm therapizing you, call me out on it. Let me know so that I can take it off and just be there for you as a friend. Like, I'm so enmeshed as Christina and a therapist, I don't know when I'm doing it. It's tough. I genuinely care about people. I genuinely love all people, and I see the God in everything and everyone. I can look at a strawberry and start like worshiping God, like, look at how beautiful this strawberry is. Or I see a bird or a grass or a palm tree, and I'm just like in awe. But I struggle to see the God in me. I do. And of course, I'm working on it. But recognizing my self-talk, recognizing the level of excellence that I expect of myself, recognizing, how I think I should look and act and talk and move and feel and not talk and not share, and to just be like, the Wizard of Oz. Like, I am well put together. I am happy. I am joyful. I am educated. I am strong. I am capable. These are all my truths. But what good is that if I'm drowning in my fears, or I'm drowning in my faith, in my fears? What am I trying to say? Drowning in my face. That doesn't make sense. Looking in the mirror. Wow. Looking in the mirror and seeing myself drown. And saying, hey, you gotta get up. We don't have time for you to drown because we have stuff to do today. Not even giving myself a life vest or like a life, floaty thing. I'm just like, get up. What are you doing? And like the inner child in me is like, help. Listen to me. Love me. Care for me. I understand that we're not perfect. I understand that we are people who have lived lives of many, many things. I understand intergenerational trauma. I understand that we are a mixture of everything before us and everything that we choose on a daily basis. Like, what a melting pot of having, your genes, having your childhood, and having life that you're trying to live every day. I think that's what the beautiful part of life is, of being able to have that chance to reset every day. Like, what if we never slept? We'd just be going. And originally we weren't, we didn't need it. But I literally wake up and I just thank God for breath. I thank God for safety. I thank God for access to water. Speaking of water, I'm thirsty. I thank God for clean clothes. I thank God for my eyes, for my legs, and my arms. And I have to take that same energy and say, God, I thank you that you give me another chance to start over, to work on these toxic behaviors, and to literally say, I'm breaking up with you. I don't want you in my life anymore. You don't serve a purpose. Hey, Dad, I see you. You gotta go. Hey, Mom, I see that. That's not me. This was good. This is very timely for me. I hope that this may have served you in some way. I hope that you have some things to think about. I am very, very deep, so I hope that something can be a seed and plant in you to grow, and for you to start reflecting on those negative self-talks or behaviors or mindsets or like habits that you do. Like, where did you learn them? Where did they come from? And remember that they're there for a reason. They're serving you in some way. So how do you swap it out with something greater? Yeah, that's it. That's what I got. Remember, everything I share, you don't have to do a darn thing. I appreciate you listening in. I appreciate you just being with me on this journey of being raw, authentic, and literally helping me gain self-awareness by just showing up. I hope you take care of yourself. Have a great weekend. And remember, don't inbox me, don't DM me. Don't ask me for advice, because I'm still in the journey myself. I can be a lot of things, but I am not your therapist. All right? See you next week. Bye.